my people vote. You know that we are the voices.
What's up, everybody? Listen, this is a brand new season of the
Our
Neil
Voice.
and Desmond Our Voice podcast, right? See, we've been out of sync for a minute. We've been busy running around, but no, this is a brand new season. And Neil, what's up? Introduce yourself,
Man, we're coming at you from the bus.
Yeah,
Here is
from the
voting
bus.
day, man. Oh, it's so good to be with you, Des.
Man,
This is
listen,
fun.
it's a great way to actually start the new season of Our Voice podcast, right? What better way than at a voting location where actually you are getting ready to vote? You did. You
I got
voted
it.
for the first time
That's right.
this year?
Yep.
Right? Okay, well, I guess it was the only time this year.
No, that's
but
right.
you voted in the presidential preference primaries,
Yep.
right? And so, yeah, so we got an exciting show. We're going to be talking about two things. The launch of the bus tour. Y'all got to, and I'm telling you, please tune in. We're going to have
Check
a lot
it
of
out.
good stuff about the bus tour. And then about this presidential preference primary, and just talk about some exciting work around the FRRC is doing around voting with our voter protection.
That's right.
What do you call it? Not the voter protection, but the
Poll
voter
monitors.
engagement poll
Yeah.
monitors program, in which we're actually now having people that's working as poll monitors, making sure that everybody get an opportunity to participate in our democracy.
And what I love about that too, Des, is knowing that there are people who couldn't vote 6-7 years ago who are actually not only just voting, but out there helping make sure that other folks can vote, and that
Yep.
there's clarity
Yep.
in the process and
That's right.
integrity in the
That's right, man.
process. You know.
And I know that there's a lot of your fans out there that was waiting, because I know a lot of folks were like, man, when you gonna let Neil get back on the show? When you gonna let Neil run the podcast, since you're not doing it? When are we gonna see Neil again? And so, hey, you asked for him, you wrote hundreds of letters and emails.
Thank you, Mom.
Demanding
Thank
Neil.
you.
Oh, that's what it was. Right, so now you have Neil back. And so listen, I think where we start off in today, you voted presidential preference primary. Now listen, I'm not even going to get messy at the beginning and ask you who you voted
Okay.
for.
All right.
But I kind of suspect. but how was that experience though?
You know what? It was a great experience just to like. It was a reminder, man. I get goosebumps every time I walk in there. It's been a couple times now since Amendment 4 passed, and I've got my ability to vote restored. And but just to walk in and know that like I get to have a say on this. This is what we fought for. There's no perfect people out there that you can support. You know.
So here's the deal: was there? And I'm glad you said about that chance to participate in democracy. Do you see a difference between when you first voted in 2019, 2020? And when you voted today, how was we want to get into it? How was that feeling in that mood?
I'll tell you what, that's a funny question. I'll just be straight up with y'all. Like I was way more critiquing the process than like when I went in the first time and I hadn't voted in forever. It was overwhelming. It was just like almost a spiritual thing where you're just like, oh my gosh, I get to feel like a citizen again. This time it was like, yeah, I'm a citizen and I'm not sure that this process is as good as it should be. I don't know what that says about me, but like to be honest, I walked in and I was like, all right, here we go, man. It was good to see a lot of people out. So to be able to kind of weigh in on that was a big deal. But I'm definitely was thinking through like, how do you help make sure that it's more vibrant? How do we make sure that people feel like they're celebrating democracy, right? I mean, because that's what we need, right? Is to have that idea that it's like, oh, I get to do this. I want to do this.
So I think that it's almost like maybe it could be a position like with our poll monitors, right? The first time you're more, apprehensive and you're trying to figure out this process and see how it goes, and of course appreciative of the opportunity. But now this time around, we're talking about 4 years later.
That's right.
Now you're going to be more engaged and more critical and be like, no, that needs to be better. No, that over there needs to be better, right? And we need to do more to create a more like vibrant or inclusive democracy.
Heck yeah. Because it's funny because I sit there and think about it. It's like I know some folks get focused on the people, and that's everybody has a right to see this the way they do. But doing what we do, it's kind of like, man, this is a chess move for the kind of world that you want to see, right? And so it's like you start to see it as it's a part of every day, being engaged in, in the process and talking the issues. So, thank you for that question. I didn't really think about how it had evolved over time.
I like how you said the chess move, right? Because, and I mean, for all transparency, it's no coincidence that we're here today in presidential preference primaries and been able to have an opportunity to watch you vote. And then we're also going to bring a guest later on that's going to be voting as well. And we're not here just because you're a handsome guy. Yeah, I mean, really, we're not. I think that when you talk
We would
about
lose guests.
Yeah,
I think we're banking on that.
hey, I know, right? But either one of us, right?
Got a good
But
face for radio.
I
man.
know. There you go. That's where we need to be on radio, not on this podcast. I don't know. But our podcast crew, they seem to think that maybe, we're good looking enough to be on camera. So
Yep.
Here we are struggling through this, right? But no, when you talk about chess moves, it's no coincidence that we're here. We're here in Fort Myers, Florida, and we're specifically not only wanting to witness you vote, but we wanted to be in a location where we knew that there were returning citizens who were registered Republicans that was voting, and we wanted to have our bus out there as a sign that we care about everybody voting.
That's right. That's right.
And we want to we always say we don't lean left, we don't lean right, we lean straight forward in issues that impact people with felony convictions, right? And that goes with this voting thing, right? That we're not like when we talking about poll monitoring or we talking about getting people out to the polls, we're not just talking about Democrats,
That's
we're not just talking about black folks, we're talking about white, Spanish. It doesn't matter what your ethnicity is. If you got a felony sometime in the past and you got your rights restored, we want you to vote. And even if you don't have your rights restored, we want to talk to you about how can we get your rights restored so you can be able to vote, right? And then we want to make sure that we don't have to agree on everything. We don't have to look like each other for us to be able to fight to make sure that everybody get a chance to vote.
No, that's
right. And so being here is a chess move. It is strategic because we want to make sure that folks know that at FRRC, right, we fighting for everybody.
I love that. It's kind of like, hey, there's some voting going on.
Yeah.
We're there. Like I want to know who you voting for, but if you're voting, you're a returning citizen. We're going to show up.
Yeah.
And people from all walks of life, have felony convictions, right?
Hey, listen,
it's still amazing sometimes that we have to have this conversation, but there are people from all walks of life with felony
from all
convictions.
walks of life. And it's funny, right? Because some folks would think, for real, if we were talking about people with felony convictions voting, I mean, even the experience we had this morning, right?
That's right.
With the folks, trying to say, what you guys doing here? They look at me and we talking about people with felony convictions. They gonna automatically think that I'm the one with the felony conviction and Neil is my probation officer or something, right? That's what they gonna think. Oh yeah, Neil, you can hang out here.
Right.
We're a nice conservative Fort Myers, right? Yeah, you can go in. But that guy, we got to keep an eye on him right quick. Make sure he don't start being a rabble.
Black folks are the ones with the felony convictions, right?
But
It's like,
actually,
what?
It's more people that look like you with felony convictions than people that look like me, and that was one of the things that we was talking about during the campaign.
But people's perception, not everybody. I do think people are getting it, but you're right. That is people's perception. It's like, and then that makes the whole conversation immediately turn political, right?
Yeah.
It's like, black folks get felony convictions, black folks vote Democrat.
Yep.
Let's put those two things together. And it's like, hey, fun story that you're telling yourself, but none of it's backed up by any truth or an acknowledgement of each person's individual humanity and ability to choose for themselves, right? Because then it even suggests that there are black folks who aren't voting Republican when we both know that that's not true.
Yeah, I know, right? I was just about to say that, and I was also about to say that, there's some white folks that are not voting Republican, but I don't want to say that because our next guest do vote Republican, and I don't want to get the wrong impression that he's going to vote Democrat, which he may. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe I might not ask him who he voted for this presidential preference primary, but maybe I ask him, will he vote for Biden? You think we should put him on the spot like that?
I'd like to see him answer those questions.
Nah,
well, he's got his cowboy boots on, so
So let me tell you something about that though. Before we do go to our next to our guest, our special, very, 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 very special guest. He's so special. It's gonna take both of us to introduce him.
That's right.
I'll start. You finish.
All
right.
All right.
We got it. Tag team.
Yep.
Cool. All right. But no. Before we go there, one of the things that that I always believed, right, especially when I voted for my first time, first presidential, I should say, is that there's a sanctity about voting, right? And I think that it does elevate, that voting is elevates us above partisan politics, implicit racial biases, right? but there's a sanctity there, and part of that sanctity is created because of the blood that was shed, the sacrifices that was made, whether it was on the battlefield, whether it was on civil rights protests during the civil rights era, but there was a lot of lives that was lost, right, for actually people like you and me.
That's right.
To be able to vote, right? And so because of the sanctity, because if you notice, when you go to vote, there's like, you're like isolated, secluded.
That's right.
Right?
No one around.
That's right. Nobody can be peeping over your shoulder because that is a personal and private matter, right? It's a sacred matter, and we don't need to defile that sacredness by being forced to talk about where we voted, how we voted. Nah, you can take that to the grave.
That's right. That's right.
And I'm gonna be honest with you. At the end of the day, at least at this point in my life, I don't care how you voted. What I care about is that you had the chance to vote and that you did go vote.
That's right.
Right. And then what I hope is that you get educated before you go vote.
That's right.
So you can make an educated choice. But as to who you pick, that's never been a big thing on mine. And I think if somebody would have asked me who I voted for, I would have told them that that's a private matter.
That's right.
But we're going to see what this guy tells us when we bring him on.
I like that. But you're right, man. You think about the fight for Amendment 4.
Yeah.
Right, I do. There's so many conversations with people where it comes down to that. Like you don't even, hey, whatever you're gonna do with your vote, man, go do that.
Yeah.
We fought for this thing that isn't the nastiest, or it can be a nasty business. It can not be so clean, right? Because you kind of want something that's very easy to do, but at the end of the day it becomes like, hey man, I just got to roll up my sleeves. I'm a citizen again, right? Like I got responsibilities here, so let me do my thing, even if the best candidates in the world aren't there, and all that kind of stuff. But I'm with you. Like if you can, just hearing you talk, it's almost like you take the word voting or voting to another level, right? Like if you start thinking about what that means rather than the day-to-day and all the fighting and stuff like that, then it's like, man, we all should be out there if we can,
Yep. We should, man. And that's why we got to make sure that our government do things to encourage people to vote, not discourage them.
That's right.
From voting.
That's right. Yeah.
Right. You can't like be tough on one group of people and try to discourage because maybe you think that they don't think the way you think.
That's right.
Because
then you're playing with the rules to get the outcome that you want, and that's scary
and it's
stuff.
It's not a good look if it's happening to you.
That's
so
right.
Why should you do it to someone else? And so anyway, so I know I'm excited. I don't know about you.
Me too. I'm excited.
Listen, I'm excited about our next guest.
Yeah.
Right? Listen, this guy is a superstar. He thinks he's like Robert Redford reincarnated. He thinks he's like this super handsome guy.
Driving around in his Charger.
In his Charger, and his motorcycle, and doing the drone shots. And he's the only guy I know that could be on a motorcycle doing 110 and controlling a drone shot of him doing 110, right? On I-75, right?
That's right.
But no, I'm talking about Lance, y'all. Lance used to work with FRRC, and he went on to bigger and better things, and he's now with AFP, right?
That's right. That's right.
And what we should ask him these questions.
Yeah,
I don't know what you got to say.
But I got to tell you, like for me, I remember voting for the first time with Lance, right? Like literally walking down, we were there.
They had confetti and all that, right?
Yeah, they threw a party for us.
For Lance, Robert Redford.
Exactly.
They thought it was Robert Redford coming down.
How else can you behave if Robert Redford's showing up?
Yep.
So yeah,
all
I'm thinking
these
like
old retirees in their 80s, just.
So they called me Dean Martin. I didn't know how to deal with that.
Not Dean Martin. Oh Lord, nah. He stretches truth on that.
That way he stretches the truth. So are we introducing him?
Yeah.
Hey, Lance Wissinger, why don't you come on over here and join us, man?
Bam.
Hello. Hello. It's like an episode of My Two Dads.
My Two Dads, right?
He loves to act like he's so much younger than me.
I know, right?
See?
What's up, Lance?
Well, you kept saying that, more people look like him. I don't think you meant this close.
No. Oh, wow.
So, well, thank you so much for having
little
me.
Florida lapel
Yes,
on
sir,
the thing.
of course.
You looking like a doggone politician.
I'd vote for him.
Oh, all right.
You know what? Lance, I'll vote for you too, man.
Awesome. Well, good.
Yeah, I would vote
Governor
for you too.
Wissinger has a good sound to it.
Governor. The Wissinger.
Yeah.
Governor Wissinger. Governor Wissinger.
Yeah.
6 syllables, man. That's a lot. That's a mouthful.
Right?
That's right.
Right? Oh, I know you were talking about like. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead. What you were going
Oh,
to
I
say?
was just gonna say you were talking about who I voted for, and I did my write-in for Desmond Meade.
That's a politician for you, right there. Listen, first, no, but for real though, Lance, tell the folks, who you are, what you do.
Sure.
You know.
Yeah, so Lance Wissinger, I'm the grassroots engagement director for the Tampa Bay region for Americans for Prosperity. Learned pretty much everything from you guys. I had two tremendous mentors to be able to take everything that I learned and now do it at a much bigger scale. And now we're looking at some big steps in the next couple of years of what we're going to do in the state. And I owe a lot of it to you guys. And so to have me on for your voting episode, super important. We were talking about the fanfare of voting, and I wish everybody had that feeling. I wish everybody had cameras and confetti and all this stuff, because like first time I ever voted, man, was the 2020 4 years ago for this, and we had cameras and people with us, and it was exciting, and like imagine if everybody had that much fanfare and
you
right,
vote and there's a whole crowd around like
So confetti,
right?
But that's what we felt like. It was like a celebration of voting.
Yeah.
Right? And that's actually that's part of the theme, because we've launched Let My People Vote bus tour again, right? And that's one of the major themes, right? That we're going around, right? We want to make voting exciting again for everybody, right? And so, man, we're going from Pensacola all the way down to Key West, man, and all points in between, talking to people about voting, talking to people about getting educated around, what's on the ballot, right? And then talking to people about, if they're not registered, how they could register themselves, right? How could they, they could take that step to be a part of democracy. And of course, when we run into our people, returning citizens, we're like, listen, if you're not registered and you got a barrier, whether it's the legal financial obligations or whatever, come talk to us. We could probably work with you to overcome some of those obstacles.
One of my favorite things is when I run into somebody that has a felony conviction and we talk about voting, and they're like, I lost my right. And I was like, are you sure? And then you tell them how easy it is to be able to register to vote. Like, they're done, man. Once you're done with everything, paid your fine and fees, and you're good to go.
Yeah,
you're done. You can go register. I don't know how many people are like, what? Like, they have no idea. Have no idea.
Didn't even know.
And so being able to share that experience and share those stories and just everything that we went through going through Amendment 4 back in 2018, I love sharing those stories. I love sharing, like, seeing how people get so motivated because the article I wrote was about losing my voice, man. I had my voice taken away from me, and because of the work that we did, my voice has been restored.
I mean, you've been an important part of our journey, Lance. Because one of the things is not only do you show the diversity of the issue, but you also help educate, right, conservatives, right? Because I know when we start, listen, conservatives would think, okay, if you lost your right to vote, you must be a Democrat, right? Only Democrats would be locked up, right? I mean. And we know that's far from the truth. And so to be able to not only share your story, but then even other stories of other conservative folks, right? I think that helps conservatives realize that, wait a minute, this is a universal issue. This is an all-American issue. This is an issue that hits close to home, right? And it's an issue that I should actually be concerned about. And I need to be pay more attention to these policies that impact even conservative people like me. Well, I'm not saying I'm conservative. Oh, that's a trick. They tricked me into saying that, right? But no, to know that whether it's housing, whether it's jobs, whether it's education or occupation license, right? Those are the barriers that are faced by people regardless of their political affiliation, right? They're faced because they have one thing in common. They all have a felony conviction, right? And so to get more conservatives to understand that it's not just like black people or it's not just Democrats, man, it's Americans that are out here suffering because of being forced to wear this lifetime letter of shame, right? That something needs to be done, and it should be done, and they're more.
And I gotta say, like, to see it too, like you feel the resonance of those issues more because there's folks like yourself who's out there. It's like, let me just tell you about what happens when you create barriers to economic mobility for people, right? It's just like it hurts all of us, right? So it's like, it is cool to, like Des is saying, it's like, man, you hear what works through real people's lives and stories, but it also requires us all to be talking to everybody.
Yep.
And that's one of the things that you love to do is get into a crowd in which somebody might not be expecting that you're about to tell them about your felony conviction.
I love it when I see people's jaws drop when I tell them, because my bio talks about, some businesses that I run and then some of my background, but I'm the one who tells them I'm a felon. When I get up there and I do, the whole bio talks about all the good stuff I did, and then I said on top of all that, I'm a felon. And everybody kind of takes us, what?
Throw the F word.
Yeah,
Not
I
Robert
do.
Redford.
Right? Yeah.
Not Robert Redford.
Robert Redford.
Yeah. The Republican version of Robert
Okay,
Redford, apparently.
Right.
So,
Is Robert Redford a Democrat?
Yeah.
He is?
So, yeah,
I
yeah.
believe
so.
Environmentalist. But that's
Yep.
funny, the Republican Redford. I like that.
Wow.
But when I first started doing all this, and even before I met you guys, and I was starting to share my story, and I was going to city council meetings, and just trying to figure out where I was going to land, not even knowing I was going to get my right to vote back. You guys, catapulted me 12 years ahead of schedule, so thanks.
Wow.
But as I was trying to go around and share my story, I just wanted people to understand that where I was coming from, that I messed up, I made a mistake, I did something dumb, and I'm still paying for it now. The person that made that decision to do something dumb is not the same person that is here today.
No.
And that is the message that we really want to get across. So I have a whole group of ladies, I call them my Republican mothers, because when I first started sharing my story, they all came up and gave me a big hug and said, we're so proud of you. We're so glad that you made it through and that you've been doing these things.
Wow.
And to
I didn't
have
know
that-
they had the group of mothers on the
I know,
Republican
I'm
side.
learning this too.
I didn't know that. Wow.
So
It's got an entourage.
the support that I've gotten though, and to be able to share the FRRC and to get I never got a lot of pushback even when we first started, but just to see the support that we keep getting over and over and over again once you take the time to sit down and talk with them. A lot of times people are like, when you hear felon or even returning citizen, I'm glad that is starting to be more prevalent, but when you hear the word felon or you hear something about a conviction, people assume it's the TV and the movie, like what you see on there, and it's not. It's people like you and me. Lee County is one of the most conservative counties in the country. We still have a jail and a prison here. There are still people that are getting in trouble, even regardless of how conservative it is. So, and most of the people that I had interactions with that wanted to talk politics in the criminal justice system, they had a background that were interested in Republican or conservative values. And those are the people that I had those good, deep conversations with. Because when I went in, I was a Democrat when I went in. I grew up in a strong union household up in the Rust Belt up in Ohio. And then came down here, got in trouble.
Became a Republican.
Man.
Hey, that's so.
Right?
Wait. Yeah, you see that? I was a Democrat, a hardworking Democrat, right, in the Union family, and then I came to Florida, got in trouble, and became a Republican.
Can we say that again? Is that right? I know you want to just talk, but that's a great line.
Hold the mic closer a little bit. Get it closer. I want. All right.
So
get in the mic.
So, grew up in a strong union household in the Rust Belt up in Ohio. Came to Florida, ended up getting in trouble, became a Republican when I was going through the criminal justice system.
Wow.
Because of the conversations that I had, because of what people that cared, the people that were looking into what was important to them. One of the things that stands out.
You're having conversations on the inside.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So, and some of the programs that I started 6 programs that we brought in as an inmate, was able to bring programs in. Some of those programs got started because we knew that we wanted to do something better. We knew that there was a better way to get through the system. So we kind of manipulated the system to make it better for us from the inside out. So that's where a lot of these conversations were. The Toastmasters group that I started was the best one because we were having open debates, and some of those debates were about politics and what was going on. One of the first things that happened to me in the prison system that really kind of started this whole movement for me was that I was in a reception center about 6 or 8 weeks in of the first start of my sentence, and they were talking about 65%. So this would have been 2007, 2006, somewhere around there. And they're talking about 65%. Me being an inmate.
So hold up now. What that means is that a person will only have to serve
65%
of their sentence.
Right.
Right
now it's at 85%.
Yeah.
So I hear this and I'm like, oh, that's not going to happen. Like, I'm not even going to put a hope in that because there's nobody out there fighting for the people that are inside. So here I am in late 2006, go through the system. I get out in 2011, start to figure out where I land in the system. And then I realize that I've become the person that I didn't believe existed. And a lot of that, all of that is essentially came from being on a part of the FRRC. Wow. And so you made something that I didn't believe exist actually come to fruition. And now
what's up.
here we are fighting for those rights, actually giving a voice to people that have lost their voice. You know, there's a lot of knuckleheads that do dumb
let me
stuff,
ask
but
you
there's good
something.
people.
Are you saying the FRRC helped turn you into a conservative?
No.
Okay, all right. I was just making sure.
The FRRC helped confirm I was a conservative.
Oh, wow. So you're getting ready to vote today.
Yes, sir.
How you feel about that?
Fantastic.
Why?
I have the opportunity to do so. And I mean, if you want to get into who I'm going to vote for, I don't have to say who, but I will say that I'm voting on the record of policy, specifically on criminal justice policy.
Okay.
And I've been talking about that through all of the primary, about who the best criminal justice policy candidate is, and the work that they've done previously.
You know what? Now, listen. Now that you're over at AFP, I think we ought to have a podcast specifically to talk around criminal justice policies and how do we get registered Republicans and registered Democrats and registered independents who are returning citizens to actually come together under one umbrella to vote around criminal justice policies.
Yeah. So
what do you think about
You're
that?
saying that you very much focus some of how you decide to vote on criminal justice issues. It's one of the things that, you know, the more that I walk through this is it's like, yeah, some people that really like your past history galvanizes how you vote, and then other people you suddenly like, oh, we're just like anybody else. Like, they're returning citizens are just like anybody else. But all said and done, it's a diverse worldview out there.
And so we can get a I think that would be amazing, because really talk about how do we get more people, right, especially directly impacted people, returning citizens, to like come together along at least one policy issue around criminal justice, right, and use our voice to actually bring about the change that when we were locked up didn't think could ever happen. And I think we can.
That's right.
Yeah, no, I think that would be fantastic.
Yeah.
Especially digging into, you know, what does actual crime and punishment mean? You know, because you do a crime, you do the time. You know that saying, as it says on the back of the bus, you did your when the debt is paid, it's paid. You know.
Yeah.
So you know, when you've done your time, should be over with.
So let me ask you. I'm bringing you back in because that's going to be another episode on the podcast. You're going to vote today, right? And you're voting on criminal justice policies, right? What do you think about the fact that when you walk into your polling location, that there are going to be returning citizens out there making sure that nobody messes with you when you go vote?
Like I told the last guy, election integrity is always important to me. You know, you know, there's a push across both parties to make sure that you know, that things are being done the way that they're supposed to be done. I know that there's a saying in conservative circles where it's like, you know, easy to vote, hard to cheat. I have no issues with that. I think that's great. But the problem is, it's not easy to vote yet, especially for returning citizens. I mean, we had an issue with people that, you know, got caught up in some stuff because they were told something. And I've been a strong advocate of making sure that our supervisor elections is very clear about what it is to become eligible to be able to register to vote, because we don't need people. We're already scared enough to get in trouble again. Well, at least most of us are.
I know, right?
Yeah. So we don't want to do anything that's gonna, you know, get us caught up again. So to hear that people are being told that they can do one thing when it's not necessarily true, or that there's misunderstandings with it, those are the things. That's where I want to start, is with education, which is where I think FRRC has been really good.
So let me ask you a question. And I know we got to wrap this up, but do you find that there are also returning citizens who are conservative who are nervous about registering to vote or voting? You know, especially with all of the rest that was happening in the past.
I don't know if it's necessarily nervous to register to vote. But what I'm seeing is a lot of pushback as far as my vote doesn't count, you know. So it's a little bit different. But I'm not so much seeing the concern of like, I don't know if I should register to vote. I will say it's predominantly people of color that have the issues where they're scared because they don't want to go and get caught up for whatever reason.
That's sad.
You know, and the districts that I've been, you know, going around through Hillsborough and Pinellas counties and Pasco counties, are predominantly, people of color. And I go and I knock those doors, and I'm trying to learn better Spanish so that I can have better conversations. So I want to be that point of education for people. I want to be the ability, I think one of the greatest things you ever said is we don't want politicians, we want public servants.
That's right.
And that's exactly where I want to be, is serving the public the best way that I possibly can.
Well, you're going to be an amazing public servant whenever you make that decision to do so, bro.
Thank you.
You're already serving the public now. You don't even need a title, right?
Well,
but even though you are the conservative Robert Redford, right? But listen, check it out. We out of time, man. Man, it seems so short, right? But unfortunately, we do have to end it. But definitely want to thank you for joining us. I want to congratulate you again on being able to exercise your right to vote today. Congratulations to you, Neil, right? And I'm glad we had an army of returning citizens out there that had y'all back, right?
That's right.
Just in case, somebody wanted to mess with your signature or whatever, or try to get you to cast a provisional. We had an army out there to back you up, right? FRRC. Yeah, we had the bodyguards, right? And so as you walk in there, man, walk with your head high, do what you got to do, and we're happy for you. Thank everybody for listening in.
Y'all, man, this has been great.
This is the first episode of Our Voice, and we about to bring it. Listen, our production crew we on the bus. We didn't even talk about the bus yet. We got to do another episode about the bus, right? But we're going to be doing so many things this year. Stay tuned. Make sure you tell your friends on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram. Check us out.
Subscribe. Yeah, the journey continues.
Peace.
Let my people vote. You know that we are the voice.